I'd like to discuss the M7 MacBook Pro Ultra coming out in March of 2027, announced by Apple. And I really don't want to talk about it. What I want to talk about is who's going to buy it, who needs it. And it's starting at $3,000 for the base model, which when you get done adding the add-ons, you'll probably be up to $4,000 or $5,000. And are you going to use it? Probably not. If you have an M5 MacBook Pro, uh, there's really no need to upgrade. Uh, Only people that are doing things with AI video, AI, certain computations, certain work-related things, uh, you would probably find a use for it, but still you wouldn't need it. Uh, and then the job would pay for it, so it's really a mute point in that sense. But right now I'm recording this on an M4 iPad Pro, and the M5 iPad Pro is new, it's the newest one out now, and there's no need to upgrade. My battery is fine, uh, and usually that's the biggest reason to upgrade any old device you might have, is the battery health is gone, and regardless of what the specs, whatever the specs are, if it doesn't run because the battery won't run, then you have to get a new one, right? Of course. But as long as your battery's fine, I don't see a reason for upgrading. Um, if you're just going to watch YouTube videos and write a few papers in Pages or Word, uh, you don't need an M5 to do that. Uh, it's kind of like overkill to have an M5 and an iPad Pro anyway. Um, you're never going to utilize the speed. Certain video games, okay, maybe you can find a use for it, but the M4 video games are just as good as the M5 video games, and I don't think you would see much difference. The M4 has 120 megahertz refresh rate, and so does the M5. It has the O-Log, the M5 has the O-Log, so you're not really getting anything for your money. And look, this is not a discussion about Apple. This is a discussion about computers, because the same exists with the Android world and the Microsoft world. They have great computers with NVIDIA and the chips that they make in the Android world, and the problem is the software. The software can only go so fast. You know, if you have a great stopwatch to use on a race that can go really fast, that can do the job the best that you can possibly expect it to do it, but the runner can only run so fast, so it doesn't matter how great your stopwatch is when the runner's only going to do a mile in 3 minutes anyway, or whatever the time is usually. I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm saying. So the software is the problem. It can only go so fast. And if you have an M7 Ultra, you still have Mac OS. If you're running an iPad Pro with M5, you're still running iPad iOS 26, soon to be 27. But you're going to run the iOS 27 on the M4, and you're not going to notice a difference. So, and they do change things because they're enticing you to buy the latest and greatest. Like the M5 comes with 12 gigabytes of RAM, where the M4 only has 8. So they're like, if you want the extra RAM, you got to bump it up. You got to buy the new version. but you're not going to need it. You're not going to see the difference. Like I said, unless you're doing the high-end work, if you're just watching YouTube videos or uh, HBO Max or YouTube TV, you're not going to notice the difference between an M4 and an M5. Now, again, the software is based in binary code. It's based in a 0-1 combinations. And that is the problem. That's why it's slow. Because it was made for a word processor. 0-1 was made to help create a word processor. The first version of WordPerfect. And back then, the software was faster than the hardware. But times have changed. Now the hardware is caught up and surpassed the software. So you can have an M10 chip and you still got the old software. So it doesn't matter. And the same as in the Android world. You can have an NVIDIA chip, but if you're running Windows 98, you're not gonna notice it. You're not gonna notice a difference. I know Windows 98 is gone. We're up to 11? 12's coming, I guess. Maybe 13. Maybe they'll skip 12. I don't know. But it's not going to make that much of a difference because it's still behind it all is binary code. And I created the God code, which does away with that. Now with the binary code, we have planes crashing, which they won't blame it on the binary code because they want to create a panic. But that's what happens. The binary code system is breaking down. It's being overused. Like I said, it was meant for a word processor, and we stretched it to the nth degree, and it cannot be stretched any further. And that's why you have data centers the size of cities, because they're all running 0-1 combinations, and Bitcoin mining companies that have huge computer banks, because they're all running 0-1 combinations. And the God code does away with all that. It makes the software faster than the hardware. It makes the ability for holograms. It makes the ability for portal travel. It makes the ability for self-driving cars, self-driving planes. It's just a mirage. Medical devices, it goes everywhere, and it's meant to go everywhere. It's not like binary code, which was made for a word processor. God code was made for the planet, to save the planet from itself. Now, the God code allows you to do a lot of what they do on big server banks. You can do it on a laptop now. And you don't need the data centers anymore. And if you did have data centers, they wouldn't be as big as they are. And they wouldn't need all the specs that they have. Because the God code would run off a much smaller operation. And it's about minimizing, not expanding. I think in the future people won't work, and that could be a problem. The idle hands are the devil's workshop. And I think what we saw with the pandemic, we saw what happens when people don't work. But the difference with the pandemic and AI making it so we don't have to work is that we're not trapped in our house like we were with the pandemic. So people will be able to go out, but you can't all go to the beach. You can't all go to the park. Well, there'll be no park. There'll be no beach. So it's gonna, it's a new world order. It's gonna create a lot of problems, but it's also gonna create a lot of benefits. You're gonna be able to spend time with your kids, and the computers. are going to change the world, as they already have. And the God code changes the world the most. And you'll never go back to the binary code.